They're going straight from agricultural to industrial and putting data centers on it. So they're making space for these data centers, but they're not making space for homes. And when you don't make space for homes, that is the problem you have with affordability. I love it when Donald Trump says something about affordability in the housing realm, because anytime he can put his name on anything, the video is going to get a lot more views. It's not the national policies that's going to save the housing market, and it's not Wall Street with institutional investors that's causing a problem in Northern Virginia. It is a lot closer to home than that. I want to talk to you about that for just a few minutes. Now, the big data shows that 5 to 7% of all housing in America is held by institutional investors. An institutional investor is someone that's on Wall Street. They hold property, they collect rents, and that helps with their bottom line to pay out their investors. However, in Northern Virginia, the overall owner of real estate that is not owned by the person living in the house are individuals. I'm going to take Springfield, Virginia, for instance. I like Springfield because it's a 5 zip code town. So it's a pretty big area in Northern Virginia that we can pull from. Right now, there are 30,438 homes in Springfield. Those are single family, townhouse, and condos. Of that, there are 4,570 investment properties. That's about 15%. So we're a little bit above the national average, if that's a true average, of 5 to 7% of properties being investment. You also hear out there people saying, well, investors are buying up all the properties. They bought 25% of all the homes last year, knocking people out of the way who wanted to actually live in them. Well, the challenge you have with that is that the investors many times are buying a house that is found its economic obsolescence. It needs a new roof, it needs flooring, it needs new kitchens and baths and landscaping. It's too small. It needs another bedroom. They need to pop it up, pop it out, pop it back, add on a garage. And Harry homeowner who wants to live there usually doesn't have the money to do that. So the investor is actually coming in many times and helping with the housing pool by modernizing it. And yes, they're going to do that. They may outbid some people, but most times they want it for about 70% of the price that they could get on open market because they're going to put so much into it. It's not the institutional company that is doing that. But when I pulled down in Springfield and found what's going on with those 30,000 properties and the 4,500 absentee owner properties, there's a huge owner out there. Almost 10% of the absentee properties are owned by, I'll tell you in a moment, but most of them are 1 to 3 unit owners. And these are people that they bought it. It was a condo, it was a small house, and then once they got done with living there, they went and bought another property and they held on to that one as a rental. That's the overwhelming majority of them. They're the neighbor next door that owns the neighbors next door. Okay, that's mostly what you have. There's only about a dozen owners in Springfield that own 4 to 6 properties. Okay, and they're usually held in a family trust or an LLC or something like that. There's one owner that has 14 houses of those 4,570. The name's about that long. I couldn't pronounce it. I give it to you, but there's one person that has 14 properties. But there's an owner that has 42 houses in Springfield. And who might that be? Fairfax County. Those money-grubbing people. I'm joking, you know that. They're with the Housing Authority and Redevelopment Department. They're hanging on to these properties for affordable housing. The problem for us in affordability is the lack of inventory. Now, why do we have a lack of inventory? Well, we got to a point where we weren't building enough houses for the number of jobs that were coming. We call that houses are where the jobs go at night. And when the counties don't open up the land quick enough to let these big builders come in and build communities, that's when you get into a problem of not building enough properties to fill the need of the property owners that want to come into the area and take jobs here. I remember Prince George's County many years ago. They put a moratorium on townhouses. They didn't want townhouses. They wanted single family homes. So they put a moratorium on townhouses. And things like that will make you lose inventory that you need for the population as you're growing the economy. You have one side of the county, the Economic Development Authority, and they're trying to draw in companies and employees and grow the economy. And then you got the other side that's trying to manage the housing of what's going on. And when they're standing in the way of making sure that we have enough housing out there, then you start creating a housing shortage. But part of the challenge you have is that you don't have the new builds coming on because the counties are putting so many regulations and slowing that process down. And then they have a hearing process. And I'll just be straight up with you. Part of the challenge of that is that the neighbors come in and have their 2 bits worth at these hearings, and they slow down the process because they don't want it in their backyard. The NIMBYs, not in my backyard. And then you have the counties that also are so excited about data centers and big buildings like that. And the data centers are happy to pay millions and millions of dollars for raw land to get their plants up there. Now, the data center, it used to be excited to the counties that, ooh, we got data centers. They're clean, they don't eat up a lot of resources, and they still create jobs. Well, they create jobs to build the building. But most data centers, according to the records that I've seen, only host about 50 employees. So you don't really have a lot of people moving in to that area, and all that land is just to help us run our computers faster and artificial intelligence greater. And what the counties are doing, and I know that in Prince William County, this is what's been going on, is they are rezoning property from, agricultural to a house on 1 to 10 on 10 acres. And then the next thing you go to is you go, okay, now we can have one on 5 acres, and we can have quarter-acre lots, and we can have commercial. They're going straight from agricultural to industrial and putting data centers on it. So they're making space for these data centers, but they're not making space for homes. And when you don't make space for homes, that is the problem you have with affordability. Because where you don't have homes where the jobs can go at night, the homes you do have are going to cost a lot more. You want to solve the housing issue, the affordability issue, we need more houses on the market. But that means we need more houses built in Northern Virginia so that as we're growing the jobs in the area, they have somewhere to go at night. That's it. That's the way I call it. Have a great day. Talk to you later.